to day 2 of Destigmatizing Mental Health. We've had a fantastic day yesterday and we can't wait to get this day started. But, before we go into it, we'd love to have the students, tell us a little bit about their experience yesterday. And in fact, even before yesterday, the entire planning, etc. Bianca, over to you.
Hi everyone. So planning this conference has been such an amazing experience so far. Even though we had a few hiccups along the way, I'm so glad in with how it turned out because this is the first time I'm doing anything so large scale like this. So I've enjoyed everything I've got to experience. I got to meet some great people, plan these amazing panels, and I'm happy with how it turned out and the impact we're making so far.
Hello everyone. So the day one was really amazing. We enjoyed a lot. We got a lot amount of information. Looking forward to the day two. We do really talk about physical health, but as we talked about mental health yesterday, it was just amazing. We got to know a lot amount of stuff. How can we really deal with the problems? How to go about it? How to eliminate the fear that we have with these kind of things related to it. So yeah, it was just amazing. Speakers coming from all over the region, all over the world, the experiences, all the facts that they shared, it was just amazing. So hope so that you guys would enjoy day two as well. So stay with us. Thank you.
Hello everyone. My experience was actually pretty great and I have a great team, so it was amazing. And personally, I was always interested in psychology, mental health and everything. So it was a great session and I learned a lot of new things and I hope everyone did. So I'm looking forward to today as well.
Hi everyone, this conference has been really special to me as I hold great interest in psychology, and this has been my first conference related to mental health where I have been apart from the course, starting from the planning to its execution. And yesterday was an amazing session. It was really informative. We learned a lot about mental health and it really means a lot to us. Thanks for tuning in today as well.
Hello, everyone. The conference that we had yesterday was really good and really informative. We had people from all over the world who we got to meet. It was, it was very good natured. We had a lot of fun and we look forward to doing the same today.
Hey everyone, we hosted the first day of our conference yesterday, and I must one of the student organizers, I thoroughly enjoyed planning the event as part of the Collegey Impact project. Having said that, yesterday we had a number of panel speakers come in and talk on key topics regarding mental health. So I'm eagerly looking forward for today's upcoming panel discussions.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Yes, I mean, this is, your Collegey Impact project. We have students coming in from all over the world now to do these projects. And it is fantastic what all of you, have put together with this particular project. And, it doesn't end here. At the closing, we'll talk a little bit more about, where this is, the next steps ahead. But we've noticed one thing: when students come in to do the impact project, they have these amazing goals that they set out to do. And if you've noticed, Syed and I initially, and then other mentors come in to curb some of those. You may feel that they're curbing you, but it's actually to set real expectations and realistic goals. And we're going to talk a little bit exactly about that in our first session with Sonia Soni, who is the head counselor at Aditya Birla World Academy. She's a psychologist herself. And there's Megha Mavandia, who is a parent coach, and Niharika, who is a parent of a very talented child. These talents are there in every possible child. It's just how we see them, what expectations we set of them, and really to see how we as educators and parents and coaches and mentors are able to balance these expectations and define failure. Is it indeed failure, or is it a learning experience? And how to make it more inclusive both at home and in school and other spaces. Create safe spaces, create inclusive spaces, ensure that equal access is given despite the child's aspirations and limitations. So let's just start this off with a question to you, Sonia. But even before I say that, I just want to tell you that at least our students who are doing the impact project are looking forward to grilling you today, because they're really excited that they have their parents and educators here. So you will have quite a few questions pop up. So to start this off, Sonia, let's talk about the school environment, right? There are aspirational expectations, and then there are realistic expectations. School defines expectation and failure more so than any other space. As a career counselor, you also get to see expectations from both parents and students. These universities, a lot of them come starry eyed, and you have to set those realistic goals for them. So what are your thoughts on that? How do you manage this?
Thanks, Suchita. And before I go on to it, I think I would like to thank each one of the students who spoke about what yesterday was all about. And college is something I've been associated for a long time. Syed and Suchita both are like great collaborators. Been with them for more than a year. And thanks, Suchita, for getting mental health as a topic, because very often, I think Arnav spoke about it, that there's a lot of focus on the physical health, but mental health gets somewhere on the back burner, which actually should be on the front burner for a lot of families today. I'm really delighted to be sharing the panel with one of my parents, also Niharika Tiwari, who's been with me for 3 years now. And I think we've had great conversations, and happy to be grilled by students, because whatever I am today is because of my students. They make me a good counselor, or if I may say, they make me a bad counselor. It doesn't matter. Yeah, as far as failures and success is considered, Suchita, they are the part of the same coin, and every student will see failures and will see successes. But very often we focus a lot on success, not even realizing that a success is there because of the failure. Every failure is a step to success. It's important that each one of us as a student celebrates success, but it's more important to heed the lessons of failure. When I say that, what I mean is that all five fingers are never the same. It is for schools, and I could just say that point blank, that there are schools that would only focus on kids who give them those ACE results, somewhere just foregoing or not even concentrating on students who may not want to be a scientist or a doctor tomorrow, but maybe happy being a musician or an artist. But I think it is about schools to be changing that third eye or the vision they have. And it's a huge responsibility for counselors to be taking on, or I would say to help parents understand that there is a world that exists for everybody here. Uh, or most of you kids who are here on this panel, I would say you are a very lucky lot, because during our times, if I wanted to take psychology, I had to fight a battle with my parents to help them understand that, hey, psychology has a bright career. But today, even a kid who wants to be going into a Berkeley College of Music and learning music, he has a bright career, or she has a bright career. It's a world of opportunities there. So I would say, when a parent comes to a counselor, don't get offended by the fact that the parent just knows the Harvard or the MIT, because most of the time it's the top brands that get selling. But the onus and the responsibility is on the school to help each and every parent realize that, there is something for your child, even if it's not a Harvard or the MIT. And as I always say in all my orientations, college counseling and the college fit, it is not a it's not a trophy to be taken back home at the end of the 2 years, but it's about a best fit. It's about choosing a college that will help each and every child to brush up the potential that the child has and to shine like a star, rather than putting the child in somebody else's shoes. I have seen kids who go to very small schools that accept them, but when they come out, they have amazing GPAs, amazing stories. And I think before I pass it on to maybe some of the other panelists, for this moment, I would say each one of you has a unique life, and universities want to hear your unique stories. You will have to fight your own battles with your parents, but believe me, they very often, as parents, we want our children to live our past, which we've not been able to live, rather than living their futures. Uh, as schools and councils, that's the battle that a counselor fights with a parent, explaining. And it's a very easy battle. And I don't mind saying that in front of Niharika, who's still my parent at school. It's a very easy battle if you involve the parents in your communications from day one. They will come to you with a high set of expectations, because we all want the best for our students and for our children. But sometimes keeping parents there with you in the process from the beginning is what is the niche that each one of us needs to be creating. So I think for now, Suchita, I will leave it at that point and maybe hear somebody else talk about it.
Absolutely, Sonia. All those points that you made, I mean, how true. And I think one word that I'm going to pick from there is the battle that we fight with our parents. We did that when we were younger, and teenagers are more exposed now. They are more vocal now. So Niharika, I mean, over to you. How do you handle this? How do you not just set those expectations into realistic and unrealistic, but also live up to some of them, because you as a parent need to live up to some of those expectations from your child as well, which is when the child will come up and open up to you and discuss their dreams and their so-called failures.
So yeah, thank you, Suchita. Thank you, Dr. Sonia, for making me a part of this panel. Because truly, I'm here as a parent. I do not consider myself an expert on anything. So even parenting is an ever-evolving process. Uh, it is hard to say that at all times I'm very sure of each step that I'm taking, or I'm living up to those expectations, or I'm being open enough for my child to come forward and speak to me in all honesty. So I feel that the infrastructure, like schools have created now with having Dr. Sonia, this kind of career counseling or even emotional counseling, it has given us a great sounding board to start viewing our children as independent individuals and not as an extension of ourselves. So first, I think there are a few hurdles that we as parents need to overcome. And one is to overcome the reluctance of our child to speak, because a child keeps thinking that they are being judged. That even though you're not judging, but it is there at the back of their mind that we will be judged, we may not be understood. It's very common with them. So I, as a parent, have to overcome that hurdle first. Then the second being that will my idea be accepted? So is there acceptance for it? Or is it just, will it be just shrugged off as a passing phase? Like mental health is a topic which is very close to my home also. Uh, my child would come up to me and tell me that I think I need some help. It's just talking to my parents is not helping. So at that moment, can I accept that fact that I, as a parent, I may have a blind spot, I may have that vacuum, and can I provide an environment where my child can be helped? So that is the second hurdle. And of course, we all of us live in the fear of unknowns. And we think that the pattern we have followed in life is a very known pattern. It's very easy to follow. And I hear this from my relatives also, कि अरे एक engineering तो basic होना ही चाहिए. So it's like as if engineering is, like something which is very basic, and then they can do whatever they want to do. So I feel that, breaking that mold of what is basic, what is required, because I think as a country, we are a country of resilience. We are a country of high population. So there is always this fear that if my child doesn't do what is most required to do, they will fall back, they will not be there, they will not be able to live a life. So we live in that fear because of our environment. And that at a personal level, yes, each step, I have to battle my thoughts first. before I'm able to hear my child's and be able to indulge in a very balanced conversation with them. I don't want them to feel that I'm giving them a ground which is not a, there's no competition at all, because probably I don't think they are good enough, or neither do I want to push them. So it's actually walking the razor edge over here. I don't know if that really put things in perspective, or if it's got more questions around now.
No, that's, I think that is such a real expression, Niharika, especially when you talk about our parental fears. It is true. And it is out of those fears that those expectations arise, because you do want your child to excel, and you may be open to, receiving any new ideas from them, if we sort of put away those old ideas of engineering and medicine or whatever, you're willing to let your child even explore music and art and other creative sort of portfolios, which in our time wasn't really the done thing. But even so, you live with the fear of the competition your child would face, and I think that is what leads us to these expectations. So Megha, as a parent coach, as a coach to all those looking after children in some way or the other, how do you help parents deal with this parental fear, and also sort of get their children to listen to them, to understand them? Because even if a parent is open, the child may still not come up to the parent or the educator, for that matter, because somewhere in the back of their mind they know that they have certain expectations of me. They will not understand there is some fear behind that expectation. So how do you sort of bring this all together and help the parent and educator and child to sort of come on the same page and talk to each other?
Thank you, Suchita. Thank you all for having me here today. And it's wonderful to hear that you guys have dedicated an entire weekend to mental health. It is such an important topic. As a parent coach and a mental health therapist, I am working with such a large cohort of people in this age group because anxiety levels are hitting such such unseen levels now, or maybe it's not been unseen, but it's been made visible because of the challenging times that we are in. But regardless, we're seeing a lot of struggle amongst teenagers and amongst parents, and the relationship in general is feeling very delicate. It's really unfortunate the kind of pressure we end up putting onto the teenagers at this age to define their life and their career, right? Because you're still exploring, you're still learning, there's so much you're discovering, but you're supposed to have arrived. And that in itself is a really difficult task. So, when you talk about how do we help deal with parental fear, the very important thing, just like Niharika before said, is to be able to put aside my hopes and desires and my family's expectations, because those voices tend to multiply and echo in the head of the parent. So even if they're able to listen to their child or their what they would like, those voices creep in and drown out that child's very nebulous voice. So the story I like to remember at this point is Dr. Seuss's Horton Hears a Who. And for those who are not familiar, it's about Horton, this elephant who's listening to this really tiny voice. And that's the voice we want to amplify. That's the voice we want to celebrate. And for parents to be able to do that for their children, it's really about constantly reflecting, why am I doing this? Why is this important? And asking themselves this question, what next? Okay, I get my child gets these grades. What next? They get into this Ivy college. What next? They perform really well and they graduate. What next? They get a job. What next? They burn out. Is that what I'm really looking for? And at any stage of this what next, whenever you hear the term burnout, I'm asking you as parents to think about, okay, how do I protect that? How do I scaffold that? Because burnout is guaranteed at the pace we are operating, and the expectations is constant need for competition and racing towards that one. But it's a pyramid, right? Everyone's not going to hit there. So, what are we doing to protect the rest of the people who aren't going to make it there? So, as parents, I feel we play a very, very important role in helping scaffold that burnout, that I didn't, that idea of failure, and breaking it. That is it really a failure? And what is success? And what about my relationships? And what about my sense of self? Second part, you asked about why don't children come up and talk and share? Um, and I really want to ask, I have interviewed a lot of children as part of my work. I talk to them on a regular basis and they just don't feel heard. So I'm sorry if I'm being very one sided, but I am in this conversation because I think children deserve to be heard. And I think they deserve to be made to feel safe, which means they deserve to be able to answer, I don't know what I want to major in. They deserve to be able to answer, I really don't know what I want to do with my life. Because, and this goes back to what you said, Sonia, because I remember wanting to take up psychology in my undergrad, and I wasn't allowed to because my grades were too good to go into an art stream. So here's what happened. In my 30s, I went and studied and changed my career. So when we have a desire, we do nurture it and we do get into it whenever we want to. And can we make the environment more feasible for that to happen and reduce those expectations by asking ourselves the what next? So I hope I've answered your question.
Yeah, thanks, Megha. That's so true. I mean, expectations are not just what I think we as parents and educators have, but it's also the expectation of the self. And just as you said, you yourself wanted to study psychology, but I think it happened with all of us really that our grades were too good to go into the arts. So I studied English much later because I was expected to do science, right? But the thing is, the expectation that we have of ourselves, are we really setting realistic goals for ourselves? So as a child too, for all these children who are in our audience today and beyond, are they really setting the those real expectations? One of my favorite this animated cartoon thing is these judges sitting in a line, and I'm sure you've all seen it, where there's a fish and an elephant and a monkey and three or four animals in a row, and they're all being asked to climb a tree, and they're being told that we're going to judge you on the basis of this. Now each one has a different skill set, right? But the expectation is that they should all be able to climb the tree, and that is how they're going to be judged. So I think it is important for the fish and the elephant and the monkey, each of them, to set real expectations for themselves and voice it. And then it comes to the point that you made, Megha, their voice not being heard. And we have found, which you as a counselor may certainly have found as a therapist, that children are facing burnout sooner. We talk about burnout in 40s and 50s. That's not the case anymore. We've seen so many students in grade 11 come and say that I just want to take a break, or I just can't handle this, it's just way too much right now. And that is burnout. So to be able to hear that voice, and Sonia, I come back to you, that you are able to hear that voice of the student when it comes to the next step in their lives. Because I've been a counselor myself too, and a parent might come and say, no, this is what my child needs to do, but you need to play that fine balance, and you need to do it in a very inclusive environment, because there are different you're the head counselor of an international school. You have people coming from different cultures, different, each one has individual needs and desires. So to bring all that together and then to also make the parent understand, it's a difficult scenario, but how would you handle it?
Um, so Sachita, putting together everything, if I could just sum it up saying, it's like the relationship that a parent and a child handle, especially in today's DNA, is a very, very fragile and full of struggles, because I think as teenagers, the exposure is far more. And one of the very common statement which even I use with my kids is, but hum to aisa karte the, like we were very comfortable, we used to do that. And the other thing is that, but I'm doing all this for you. I'm sure your child has not asked you to do all that. That's something that you want to do because it is your social status. It is something that you want to be looking up at somebody in the society and say, hey, this is all that I've been doing for my kids. So when we look at a career path, and I'll be very honest, out of 10 parents, if I'm seeing in a day, I'll have 6 of them who would come to you and say that, okay, I have decided. The we and the us is completely missing. And that's the point where I think I am known to be taking a student side, because I believe in a humanistic approach to counseling, which is more of student centricity, that we often hear the student and we say, what about patching this and understanding, building a common path? The conversation and communication, what Megha just said, most of our students lack the power of expression. And the irony is they lack it because we've never even given them the ability to talk. When a child begins to talk, I think the mother or the father jump in saying, but ha, aise karte na, let's do it like that. The idea over here as a counselor and what we follow back in school is that hear the student first, hear the parent first. After that, everybody for me is first, because I want to give them equal importance. I don't want to be making a parent unheard and not giving them the importance, because ultimately they are, I always believe, your moms and dads, young kids over there listening to me, are your best caregivers. They are your best well wishers, so please don't take them wrong. But there is somewhere a lack in your communications. If you keep on telling them again and again and again that this is what I want to do, this is where my happiness is, I think parents would find it a little difficult initially, but somewhere they would bend in and give in to your happiness. One of the things that I would talk for being a parent myself is that it's difficult sometimes to accept and acknowledge the fact that my child does not want to travel the road which is a very, very safe road, rather wants to take a road which is completely has lots of ups and downs, and life is a roller coaster ride. It's never going to be perfect. It's going to have perfect moments and it's going to have those rough patches, but it's the experience that's going to prepare them for life. And I often ask my parents that, fine, if we send him to a good engineering college. And Suchita, with coming from an international school, we have parents with very high legacy who say, ki, okay, I'm looking at a Carnegie Mellon and I want my child to be doing engineering. And Dr. Soni, do you know I'm from there? And I really have to tell them, okay, but we are talking about your child. Where will your child be happy? I said, fine, we can send the child to a Carnegie Mellon. What if he cannot exist? I think the idea over here is to also help the parent understand that there is a career path for everybody. The road untraveled or the road less traveled has far more experiences that will somewhere help your child to build on. I feel one of the curriculums, so one of the subjects which I very strongly advocate is communication for every school. And it is not just me. I think today I'm able to say that with a lot of pride and ease, because that's the school culture I belong to. If we celebrate an engineer, we've also celebrated an artist and a musician. We will not have a list just flashing our engineers and doctors. Can you imagine um, a space where only there are doctors and engineers and no artists to give you the kind of backgrounds we all are using today? So it is a place for all, and that is what we explain parents. I've had families of doctors coming and saying, but she wants to be an artist. How would it be? I've had the top notch doctors at my school whose son wanted to take up law back in Australia. Okay, and that was like a nightmare for the parents. But it was a very, very interesting, I would not say a case for me, but a very, very interesting learning for myself. So we started working with the family, explaining them that even if he's a doctor, he would not be able to be successful himself, because he he freaks at the sight of the blood. So putting everything in front of the parent is something you need to be doing. um, I am sure we understand that as a counselor your role is a tough one, and Megha would understand even as a parent coach her role is going to be a tough one, because sometimes you become the nasty one for the parents. You are really the one where they feel that you're supporting the kids. But I tell the parents that why would I support your kid? I'm just supporting somebody whose life I want it to be thrived later on. And happiness is the key. And I think at the end of the day, Suchita, what I just said at the beginning for teenagers, that your parents are your best well wishers. Even today, I believe my mom and my dad would never think that for me. They would have their own perspectives. But as a student, as a child, it's my job to explain them. Students, please understand, it's good to fight with your parents at times. I'm sure, Suchita, you being a young mom, you've had a lot of fights yourself. It's important that you fight, because when you fight, you speak your heart out, not your mind out. Sometimes you need to be speaking from your heart. And because of being the Asian culture we all are, where the respect is very, very often taken as not speaking up, is a big mistake. Today we are definitely a developing Asian culture where hearing voices is important. And I think for parents to understand that you are going to be with your child maybe for another 60 years, but the rest of it is alone. So let the child take the path. And I often tell parents that let him walk the path that he wants. We are here to understand whether it's a safe path or not. If he falls, he'll be willing to stand up and walk again, because that's the path that the child has chosen, rather than the child blaming you after 10 years that I'm not happy doing this. And of course, as parents, we are also looking at the monetary growth, that I want a good earning career for my child. And I think at that point, I asked the parent, which is the career that does not pay money today? Please tell me. Which is that career where you don't have money? I think each and every career, even in academia, even if you want to go into hardcore academics, there is a lot of money if you are at the top of your game. So, and how do you be at the top of your games? Because you have to be led by passion. Passion is the fire, and that's what really goes about. So, Suchita, just to say, it all has to begin from schools also. Starting from the top, it has to be a trickle down effect. And that's a school philosophy, that we are here for everyone. And that's why we need more of inclusive education, not just not just schools which are meant for all the 45s and all the A stars, because that's what cohorts are. Because life is not always perfect. You have to deal with everybody around you.
That's very truly said, Sonia, because, it's like you said, about a child being able to fall and then get up again. And I think we focused a lot on expectations, but what of failure and how to deal with the idea of failure and take that as a learning experience and then get up and start to walk again. So Niharika, I mean, how do you deal with that idea of failure, and with all that, keeping in mind what Sonia just said, how to take your child ahead from failure?
So, Suchita, firstly, I think whatever Sonia said about the college selection and how to select a career, I have experienced that firsthand with her also. And it is her and counselors like her in the system who have given us a great helping hand as parents to figure out uh, that everything which is not looking like a success is not a failure. So like my child has not been an A-star student from the beginning and in every subject, but it doesn't mean that I do not recognize their strengths. So if I have to just come to a personal level at my house with my kids, we never had incentives for success kind of a approach. That if you do this, if you succeed if you get an A-star in this exam, we'll get you, say, whatever you wish to get, or we'll take you for a trip or anything. If you are successful, if you're doing something well, it's because probably you like to do it. And if you have not been able to do something well, let's figure it out. Is it because that you don't like to do it? Or is it because you just came up a hurdle or a hiccup in that, and if we can help you out? So all successes are just celebrations of family, and all failures are also an effort from the family to figure out. And when at least in my experience, it was, if you don't attach too many gives and takes to each stage and you let it flow like a stream, it kind of settles within them that, okay, today I have reached a height in a particular subject. It's not necessary that I may not fail in this subject at another level. So it is a learning curve that I have to keep maintaining. I have to, and in the process, they have discovered what they're passionate about. So I have two very extreme passions in my house, a son who is into computer science and a daughter who's completely into art and psychology. So, uh, and I have to always bifurcate my mind into who works in well in what, and make no deliberate comparisons. Sometimes, comparisons can be implied or as well. And that is when I need to break that barrier that no, I do not mean to compare your math grade to his math grade. Uh, Sometimes it's difficult to convince because they know that you've been happy at that A star. So then obviously you're not that happy at this B or C or whatever. But then I think that's an evolving process as a family. And also we have uh, uh, our vulnerabilities or our failures. We have presented those to our kids right from the beginning, that it is not that we were always on the top of all our games. So I think presenting our failures, putting our vulnerabilities in front of them also gives them that space and that vision that it's okay, that if we are not doing well right now, it's not that it's a hopeless world out.
Right.
So that little bit, that has kind of helped, and I'm hoping that it will go ahead and make them stronger beings in the future. So but I
Right.
think the infrastructure support has been great. I really appreciate that. We did not have that in our times. uh, I can, and also the kids now need more of this support because there are so many options out in the world. There are so many ways that they can research these options. So I probably just had, my relatives and my peer group who were telling me, ki, Acha, ye kar lo, or you can probably do that. You're good in science, so why don't you do the BSc, or why don't you go for this or that? But these kids have a good resource to actually look in and research. It can get confusing, and that is when you need some real professional eye who can just let you put things in a framework. I think that is very important because there's so much information out there. It can get overwhelming. And then you have a counselor who can actually help you put things in the framework. It helps the parents, it helps the students. And I think parents should reach out. Even if it's not a part of their education system, parents should reach out in general for such help. And as Megha said that, these are the scaffoldings and you need to reach out for that help. So I have been fortunate in that end. Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank you.
absolutely. And I really liked what you said, that framework. Now, this framework could constantly be evolving, because learning has to be constant, right? So, Megha, I mean, if you were given this job of creating that framework and you were asked to sum it up in 3 minutes because we're running out of time. There is also a question from a student who asks, that inevitable question: what can we as a student do to make our family members understand that we want to pursue a particular subject or stream? I think this is that, that inevitable question that would have come from a student. But if you could just wrap up with, creating that safe space for the child, uh, uh, keeping constant learning in mind and constant evolution of those thoughts and expectations, create a framework. Megha?
So I think I'll talk about the framework in context of these two questions that are there, which is about how do we open these conversations with our family members. So say it is the young adult, the teen, who's needing to lead this conversation as opposed to the parent leading the conversation. Because in enough of my work, we see that the parents are not able to see or hear the child's voice. They are being led by other voices which seem to be louder. And I asked the young adults, the teenagers, to look for creating connection with their parents. See, they have a learned experience of being a part of this family. They have a learned experience to know what is it that are the hopes and desires of my parents. What are the insecurities that are being put onto the table today? Now, I know I'm asking for a lot, but this is a tall task that you're setting yourself to, where you want to become the leader of this conversation. And it's also important to do it because a large journey of adulting is also of understanding that my parents might not always have the right answer. And now, how do I develop confidence in that? So, at this point, where you're still a minor, you're still dependent on your parents, and you are still on that negotiation table with your family members, how about opening up safe conversations? In my practice, I always tell people that look for wherever somebody is and just go one up. So if your family is talking about science, 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 and then you say, I want to do music, ain't gonna fly. So let's go one up and let's try to ease them into a slightly different direction and then go up and then go up and then gradually maybe you'll be able to take them to the direction you want to. But it's really about the art and the skill of negotiation. So, something I like to talk about is, can we create time between parent and child, which is not about school? Can we reconnect as individuals, as family members, and focus on the emotions of laughter, of play, of just good time together? Because then we're able to cut through that noise and get down to what binds us. And what binds us is that heart to heart connection. But because I wake up to I sleep, all I'm thinking about is stress, kal ka kya hoga, what about tomorrow, what about the future, I'm forgetting about the present. So, can I ask you, as students, as the torch bearers? So, I work with this organization which is doing, it's run by a 16-year-old girl, and it's to destigmatize mental health amongst teenagers. And she talks about it. She's like, we look at mental health completely differently than the other generation does. I mean, I belong to that other generation, so it hurts a little to hear that, but that's the reality. But now if we're looking at it differently, how about giving little inroads and introductions into it in areas which feel safe for the parents to enter into, wherever it may look like, whether it is roping them into a panel discussion like this, whether it is sharing a book that shows them an alternate, whether it is watching a TV show which creates a conversation opportunity which look different. And yes, parents do compare struggles of their time and yours, and it's important to listen to it because when they're talking about struggles, what they're actually talking about is fear, and address fear. So don't say, but your time was different. That's not addressing fear. Listen to them, say, I know that could have been hard. I think I can relate to that struggle and give an example of your struggle. But keeping in mind, don't try to marginalize their struggle. Hold it and show that, yeah, can you see that this could also look like a struggle? So I hope that's proving to be some sort of a framework for a very difficult conversation in 3 minutes.
Yes, thanks, Megha. I think it's, it has always, this conversation has always been important, even pre-pandemic, but even more so given the pandemic, and to maintain good mental health, which is really the topic of discussion here. And to take the question of emotional literacy further, I'm going to invite Divyansh now to go into our next session with Chandrika Iyer. Thank you, Sonia. Thank you, Niharika and Megha. There are a few questions in the chat. If any of you would like to take those, please do. We do need to go into the next session.